Welcome, brothers, to the Truth Table. I'm Paul Everton, and this week I covered the October 11th case between the King and Cullen McDonald, and this is what happened. Okay, it's not starting. Let's see if I can't.
I'll take this opportunity just to thank everyone. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I just wanted to say, God bless you. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you guys for coming. It's going to be an emotional day for me. But I think I was chosen. I think that God picked me for this. A lot of people maybe, for a number of reasons couldn't be here in this position. And, I didn't want to be in this position, but here I am. And if that's what God wants for me, then I'm here. And thank you guys all for your prayers and support. Thank you guys for coming. That's really all I wanted to say is thank you. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. And we got this. Hashtag we got this.
Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm very happy to see the turnout here. Cullen's been with us since right in the beginning. Same with Rebecca. And today's very, very important. So I'm really, really happy to see everybody here.
So I'm really proud of Cullen for standing up too. I'm the candidate actually in the next federal election for the People's Party of Canada. And I keep telling people every day that if this can happen to Cullen, if Cullen can be arrested for basically making a choice of who he associates with and having an opinion that is different from the government narrative, then we are all at risk here. Actually, even the people who agree with the government narrative are at risk as well. We are all at risk because it is not the job of the government to tell you what you're supposed to believe, who you're supposed to associate with, what you're supposed to inject in your body. It is the job of government to protect your rights so that you can make those decisions for yourself. And that's really what this was about from the beginning, protecting our charter rights. And we have to continue to do that. And I think even in this next federal election, every federal election is a big deal. It's a chance to change the direction of the country. Many people have lost hope in our country. They've lost hope that our systems are all collapsing. We see our judiciary that is bought out by political interests. We see our healthcare industry bought out by big pharma interests. We see our military industrial complex that is pushing all our politicians to promote war over peace. All this money that has been going to all these other places in the world, it takes away from all of us. Now, does that relate to Cullen? Absolutely, it relates to Cullen because it is all related to our freedom. And when government does things to undermine our freedom, then it affects all of us.
I know everyone has been thanked a million times for coming. I'm going to say it again. Thank you very much for coming. I think everyone here understands how important this case is. What can I tell you? There's never been anything like this in the history of Canada. I think the last time was in the early 1900s when we originally had anti-mask, anti-vaccine rallies. Most people don't even know about this, but humanity has been through this before. We're at the stage where we're going through this now, and I believe we're going to win. This is called common nuisance. This is a new term they're using, which means putting the public at risk, even though there's no victims whatsoever. This case in particular is close to me because, like Cullen, I too was arrested and criminally charged with the exact same common nuisance. I was maliciously prosecuted for about a year. I'd like to point to Exhibit 1 on the speaker. If you can look over there, you'll see I didn't take the tape off. That speaker, along with I call the battle wagon, where I protested in the city of Toronto, was taken in as evidence and held for a year because I did exactly what I'm doing right now, talking to people on the street, letting them become aware of what's going on, things I don't want us to say publicly. Of course, I got it back because, as you can see, it's here. Uh,
Off the sidewalk, please. Sorry.
yeah, we'll just move from the sidewalk.
All right, Karen.
Go get Karen. Come on back. This is a very important case, as I mentioned. There's no case like it. It basically criminalizes bylaws. So I'm sure everyone has heard of Bill C-293. There's provisions in there about emergency preparedness. They can essentially take all those provisions, which will end up being bylaws, and then arbitrarily criminalize which ones they choose. And they'll probably go after people that they consider leaders or influencers, etc. That's the whole plan with this. And I think that Cullen's case ties directly to Bill C-293. If you haven't heard of it, please look it up. I believe our factum is rock solid. Sorry, our submissions, I should say, sorry. Or no, factum, it's an appeal. We have mens rea that's outlined, which is that Cullen never had a guilty mind in the first place. We have R versus Sharma, 1993 decision, Supreme Court, which says that you cannot escalate a bylaw. So we're hoping that this court recognizes their own laws, Supreme Court being the highest court in the land. And of course, the Canadian Bill of Rights, Section 1D and E, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, which every Canadian is entitled to. Don't ever forget that. Besides that, I mean, I think we're going to kill it in there, and I think that the law is on our side. I think God is on our side. And again, I'm just going to thank every single one of you for coming out. I know many of you probably had long drives. Mine was 5 hours, but I'm pretty sure many of you could probably beat me on that because you realize how important this case is. So thank you very much for coming out.
Cullen, you got this, brother. And when this whole pandemic started, I knew it was coming to this day today with Cullen here, not specifically him, but I knew what they were trying to do to us, and that's why I said no to all of it. Ironically enough, it was a health emergency, but it was the Liquor Board of Ontario that first came to talk to me about why I put a sign up on my business. Say no to vax passports, all welcome at Jack's. And I've stood by that the whole time, and I still stand by it. And we all know all the lies that have been perpetrated the past 3 or 4 years, and all the truth that has come out as a result of all those lies and what they've done to us. So I knew it was bigger than me and my business. So sacrificing my business and my livelihood was the only thing I could do to stand up to this tyranny, and still stand by it today. And like Cullen said, and like Dave said, God chooses people to take stands and do his work. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm grateful to that. And the glory goes to God in all of this for all of us. So amen. This is a spiritual battle. People need to realize that. And all of you being here today to support Cullen is amazing. And you know what? He does have this. And God is on our side, and specifically on Cullen's side today. And Mr. Dave Freedom, who just spoke, the work he has done for me throughout my cases over the past few years, and the work he's done for Cullen is immeasurable. Rebecca Shepherd, you guys are amazing. And you guys have helped people see and wake people up in this country to what's really going on. And we can't stop this fight. We have to stand against it and continue to do so. And all you being here today shows that you are in full agreement with all of that. So thank you very much, and God bless all you guys. Hashtag we got this.
Yeah, a little bit unexpected even being here today. Dave kind of dragged me out here. He said if I could help. And I ended up doing a bunch of research for Cullen. I ended up putting together some of his materials for him. Sort of at the last minute. We don't know what will happen today. The materials themselves may not be accepted. I hope they are. Everything was done properly. It's just late. It should be admitted, given that he's a self-represented litigant. I'm not a lawyer, as everyone knows. I argued the Fernando appeal successfully, which struck testing as a condition under the Quarantine Act, using Section 14 of the Quarantine Act. This is it's federal law. It was in provincial court, so it won't automatically change the law, throughout Canada. But it will happen eventually. As for this case is actually for appealing less than that case, which is the Fernando case, which was $5,000. This is for $3,000, I think, plus another $1,000 for victim surcharge. Of course, no victim, no crime, as we know, but they don't see it that way. I am confident in the case, but I have no idea what will happen today. Anything can happen. Cullen would like me to represent him today and argue the case. We only get 30 minutes. Cullen, as you saw, he's on the line here. It's thankfully not prison time, but he knows how important this is for everyone here. He might get emotional during the oral presentation, so I've offered to argue it for him. I know all the cases. Just so you know, there's over 1,300 pages of authorities backing this challenge, 29 authorities in total. The reply fact and the written materials itself, if it's admitted, Cullen technically doesn't even have to speak, and I don't even have to speak because it's all written. And generally, if this will go to even a higher court, this is a superior court, it would be the Court of Appeal. In that case, he would need a real lawyer because you're not allowed in the Court of Appeal unless you self-represent. It wouldn't be possible. Everything is done in writing, so the appeal would be based on the written materials submitted. You don't want something being done on a transcript. So this is, and this, to be clear, this is an appeal. Some people are not quite sure. They're saying this is a verdict or something. The verdict is in. He was acquitted and he was convicted. So he was acquitted before he was convicted, two different proceedings. So one thing here is that 13 days prior to his conviction, he was acquitted. And that decision was ignored by the trial judge in this case. So that is one of the grounds of appeal, that the precedent set in the court itself, in the same court, was not adhered to. Doesn't make any sense because there's strict criteria the Supreme Court came up with, and you'll hear that argument, as well as I'm sure if you've read up on this case, you've heard of something called Sharma, the Sharma principle. It just basically means that if there's a provincial offense that's regulatory, there's an offense regime that's regulatory, something called strict liability, that you can't bring in a hardcore criminal charge or even an arrest pursuant to the provincial regime, which is a ticketing regime. So if it's punishable by tickets, they can't come and arrest you, just arrest you to stop you from committing that offense, let alone charge you with something criminally. And so one of the positions that we've taken is that the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act, EMCPA, and the Reopening Ontario Act, the ROA, they've never contemplated, let alone authorized, the use of force. It's a critical point to be made. This is probably the most critical point, is that forget about the criminal charge. They weren't allowed to touch Cullen. They weren't even allowed to touch him. They could have brought an injunction. They could have kept ticketing him. That regardless of what we think about the law, we all agree it was all garbage. But that is the law. They could have kept ticketing him and they could have brought an injunction. They didn't do it. They brought injunctions, other injunctions in Ontario, in BC, in Alberta, in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia, they brought a province-wide injunction. And the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal was highly critical of that decision by the government. And this is something that you have to go through a process to get an injunction. You have to bring an application, do all sorts of work, go before a judge, and then after that, if they disobey it, bring a motion for contempt. And then you can start arresting people. There's a lot involved here. Here, police officers are just arresting people with no arrest powers. They have no arrest power under the EMCPA or ROA. So if they have no arrest powers, it's completely illegal, and the charge that follows is illegal. A lot of supporters for Cullen.
They're here.
So be careful. He could be charged with common nuisance, right? Yeah. So I guess I'll just finish by saying that this case at its core is really not that complicated case. It's really whether the police did or did not have the power to arrest Cullen and to charge him. They didn't. If Cullen had run away, some people get nervous. Maybe Cullen could have run away. They would have been able to arrest him. But because he didn't, he stood his ground. No power of arrest. That's in the Provincial Offences Act. And in many acts, the power of arrest is written in, like the Highway Traffic Act, Provincial Offences Act, the Trespass to Property Act. A lot of people dealt with that with mass exemptions. People said, throw me out. The police came and they arrested them. They have that power, and it's not in the ROA or EMCPA. So to Cullen, to everyone here, I mean, I wish us all, because we're all intricately involved in this. Any type of affirmation of this conviction, meaning a loss of this appeal, and a win of the appeal brought in the other case where Cullen was acquitted, would effectively criminalize protest in Canada. It would, and certainly in Ontario. I mean, it would be a binding precedent in Superior Court, and it would criminalize protest. And what's most dangerous is, even if they promise that they won't use it, it has a chilling effect, so that people will know, well, if I show up at this protest and I say something that's very unpopular, maybe I might be arrested. Maybe I might be charged with a hardcore criminal offense. So it's intimidation, it's coercion, it's everything we've dealt with the last four and a half years. Yep. So this is a critical case. We must win it, and even if it somehow we don't win it today, I would say take it to the Court of Appeal. As I said, I can't have anything to do with that other than trying to find him a lawyer and submitting the materials for this case in the appeal as grounds for appeal. But we are definitely, we're hopeful, we're optimistic, but we don't know what will happen. Anything can happen today. So hopefully the right thing happens. We win. It'll be a win for us. It'll be a win for everyone in Ontario, and it'll be a win for everyone in Canada. Thank you very much.
Huge thank you to Chris Weisdorf. And guys, I want you to know, with his win, with the Quarantine Act, it had been argued a million times. But Chris did it right, and it was such a big win for everybody. So really looking forward to what's going to happen today. It is, I think it's about 20 to 11, so we're going to start getting ready to go inside. I'm actually, so I'm a baby Christian, as I've been called by Shadestone. I used to be an atheist, and I realized that I was tricked in my life and realized that this is a spiritual war. So guys, prayer is not my forte, but I'm going to give it the old college try, as they say, because I think we all know that Mr. Crown Prosecutor Lucifora could use some God in his heart. And you couldn't script this if you tried. So if everyone can join me, and I will do the best that I possibly can to call on God to be with us today. So I will do my best. So, dear Lord, we ask that you be with us today in this courtroom, and we ask that you support Cullen and his appeal today, and give him the words, the wisdom, and the strength to persevere. And we ask that you find your way to bring your love and light into the heart of this judge today and the Crown, so that they can be guided to realize that the path that they are on is not the way of God, and that it is not what the Canadian people want. And we ask that you be in all of our hearts today and give us all the strength and all of your love as we move through this challenge with our friend Cullen McDonald.
And with that, I say thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen.
Can you sing?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all our sons' command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, our true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
It's been a long, almost 5 years. You know, but the truth is this: what happens to Cullen happens to all of us, and it's just that simple. If it happened, you know, if it happened to you, Paul, if it happened to Rebecca, same thing. I would be here. We have a lot more. You know, when it comes to our freedom, our personal selves don't matter anymore. You have to put yourself outside. And you have to come together. You just have to. And so, you know, if it was you, if it was this lady here, if it was any of us, you know, I do my best to show for everybody. Cullen is he's like my brother, man. He started Hugs Over Masks with us.
Yep.
You know, he's been here since day one. So did Rebecca.
Yep.
You know, and I'm very, very proud. I'm very, very proud. And you know, after almost it's been nearly 5 years. Everybody has their own lane. Everybody stays in their own lane. But when it comes to things like this, we have to come together.
We have to.
We just have to.
Yes.
It's that simple.
It's all or nothing at this point.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you want to say about this case, or your experience, or anything you want to say to the general public?
Well, this case is very important, and there have been no shortage of very important cases that we've experienced over the last 4 years. I think the person that should really give you all the detail on that is Chris Weisdorf, who's standing here, and I'm sure he'll have the opportunity. You'll give him the opportunity to really discuss this. But you know, my background is in law enforcement, and from a law enforcement perspective, in spending 32 years of my career upholding people's charter rights, being one of the first classes in Ontario to receive training in the Charter of Rights back in 1982, I find it appalling that if you understand in this case the story behind how the criminal charge was laid against Cullen, it's completely ridiculous. I recall being here and standing here in protest as well alongside Cullen on a few occasions. And when I discovered the fact that he's been charged criminally with something he has a charter right, God-given right to do, it's appalling. And so we have to stand for that, because this will go sideways if we don't.
I agree 100%. And this sets a precedent today. And as you know, I know some RCMP people and whistleblowers that are doing everything they can as well. And there's good people in every department that are trying to break out of the prison, the compartmentalization of their situation and inability to disclose or talk about certain things.
I will be testifying next week on the 16th of October in Vancouver at the National Citizens Inquiry. And I will be addressing that exact issue.
Police powers, power of arrest. You have two different provincial acts, the EMCPA and ROA. You have these two acts, and they ticketed people. A lot of tickets were given out. But when Cullen McDonald kept protesting, they came after him, and they said, well, yeah, we're going to arrest you, we're going to charge you. The problem with that is neither act allows for that. And there's something called the Sharma principle, which says that there's a provincial regulatory regime, that there's regulations set up under provincial offenses, and if they're ticketable offenses, you can't arrest them to begin with, and let alone charge them criminally. You can only do that if it's in the acts themselves. The province could, there's a lot of things the province can do that the legislature can't do. They could write into their legislation. They didn't write it into any of their legislation. They still arrested him and they still charged him. And he won his first case. He was acquitted. The second case he lost. That second case is being appealed now. The appeal is being heard today. But the judge, the trial judge in this case, where he lost, where he was convicted, the sentence was $3,000. Could have also gotten jail time, didn't get jail time, thankfully. Ultimately, that's about what happened with the earlier case, where he was acquitted 13 days earlier. The judge didn't apply that precedent. So a lot of many, yeah. That could be considered common nuisance by some people. So unfortunately,
Absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, it comes down to this thing called the Sharma principle about whether they have the use of force, whether they could arrest, whether they could charge him under the criminal code. They clearly cannot. The law has been like that for 31 years, set by the Supreme Court. The second question is precedent. Does that precedent for 13 days earlier, does that apply? Of course it does. Are there ways for the judge to have addressed it and maybe departed from it? Sure, but he didn't. And the precedent regarding Sharma and all the other lower court precedents that followed Sharma, courts of appeal, superior court, courts of justice. Sharma cases are not argued very often. I think the last one might have been about 10 years ago. But, when they come up, they tend to, put an exclamation point on the original Supreme Court case. And then the remainder would be about his guilty state of mind. That's if all the Sharma stuff fails. How they somehow deduced his state of mind because he disagreed with the government. They're literally saying he disagreed with the government. I'm taking judicial notice that this is the deadliest pandemic in human history. And because you disagree with that, you're a public health menace.
Yeah, right.
You're someone who is a common nuisance, and you should be punished for your disobedience according to the law. Instead of ticketing him, they did that. You can't even prove his mental state. He never testified at all. So how are they going to prove his mental state? Plus, the judge in the acquittal said all these people, there were all these exemptions, all this stuff was going on. How is he to know that he was some kind of a threat to society? How would he come to believe that? How would he come to fulfill this willful blindness doctrine bar?
Yeah.
How? And he can't. He plainly cannot. So these are the grounds of appeal today. There are other grounds, but these are the ones that are going to be argued today. We'll see what happens. There's the 4 stages of ideological subversion,
right,
investment, all of that.
Yeah.
That's all that's going on. There is a Marxist construct with respect to wokeism and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're redefining language and going after the children.
Yeah.
We know all that. But in terms of this is how authoritarian states act.
Right.
The first thing an authoritarian state will do, authoritarian can mean any kind of type of government. Usually it's a collectivist type of government,
Mm-hmm.
but collectivist society, collectivist system.
Yep.
But in this case, it's more about, and everything that we've encountered is really, it's fascism, but using communist playbook.
I would have said fascism for sure that we've already been in when we saw the media working with the government.
Oh yeah, you can't even tell them apart.
Yeah.
Just like you can't even tell the unions and
Absolutely.
employers apart.
Yep.
You can't tell where the corporation begins and the
Yeah.
government ends. And that's a huge part of it. It's using the communist playbook so it's demoralization,
Yep.
destabilization, crisis, and
Yep.
normalization.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
asked about whether it's about cultural Marxism. It's really about the government, regardless of what type of government it is, cracking down on our fundamental freedoms.
Yeah.
And they're saying, it's difficult to even really comprehend their argument. They're saying that
They're not inalienable.
yeah, Well, we don't have unalienable rights in Canada. We should, even in the U.S.
I think so too.
Yeah, we should have them. In the
Yep.
United States, it's a Declaration of Independence.
Yep.
But
Yep.
even there, unalienable rights have been dialed down. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the right against unreasonable search and seizure, and
Yep.
unjust fines and things like that. You know, things like that are
100%.
I think that are unalienable rights, but they have not really been upheld in the U.S. So here, we're getting hit really hard as well. So I would say this is all about weakening our rights and making sure that we don't fight back. So it's very important that we do this. A lot of people just throw the towel and they decide, I'm not going to fight back.
Mhm.
And then if they try to get competent counsel, they don't want to represent, or they do, it'll cost too much money. People like me are, unfortunately, it's not fair, are few and far in between. There are people who are definitely more skilled than I am, but either they cannot represent someone because there's some political angle, or maybe their firm, because they are real lawyers, are retained. Because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a paralegal, I'm none of those things. I'm not a licensee, but there are people who want to fight it, but they can't because their firms have been retained, conflicted out. They were retained by the government. And then there are other people who can't do it because their partners don't want them to do it. And there are other people who can do it, but they'll charge too much because they themselves didn't get a lot of business because of COVID. There's a lot of different angles. But
Yeah.
but it's not. Yeah, should I be the one arguing this? No, it should be some great lawyer.
Were you found guilty on the event of it was in April 2021? It was at Oaks Park on Lisbon Hill, where I was at that event as well. Maxime Bernier was at that event. He got evicted. Why did they put this on you?
They alleged that I was the organizer, and in my disclosure, it was written that because I was the organizer of that No More Lockdowns Niagara protest, that it was a string of logic where because the organizers didn't inform the police of the route, and because there was the pandemic and this risk to the public, and again, this was a false allegation, 100% false. They had no evidence, and I wasn't the organizer. I was invited by the organizer to speak, just like Maxime, right?
Yeah.
And but we believe, and I believe, that it was because of my impact and influence, what I was saying, how I was saying it, that ultimately led to that false allegation. But that's why I was targeted criminally instead of provincially, like Max and everyone.
Like he did get it.
Yep.
But they dropped it.
Right.
They dropped it.
Yeah. And everyone else, right? And so I was acquitted on that charge.
Well, I was at that event, so by their logic, maybe they kept me safe by arresting me because maybe they kept me safe from the virus.
Yeah. And that was
right.
What's my biggest question was what was it that I did that caused the risk? Because in my release conditions, they restricted my ability to amplify my voice, right? Not my physical presence. They didn't restrict me from going outside, or they didn't jail me to protect the public. The only protection through the release conditions was to restrict my voice, right? So that shows you what they were really doing, that charge. Yeah. But I was acquitted on that one. And then, so 2 weeks later, there was a much smaller protest in St. Catharines. That was the protest I was found guilty. Again, same situation, same motives.
What's at stake today?
So I think the most important thing is that we continue to protect our charter rights, which is our freedom of association and our freedom of expression. Basically, to me, it seems like Cullen McDonald pushed for having a different opinion of the government. And when we allow this, if we can allow this happens, then we're going to have a precedent where we could be prosecuted today for having a different opinion from the prosecutor inside the country. We could also be prosecuted for associating with people who have different opinions. And the reason the charter is there is even to protect opinions that are uncomfortable, that are dissenting from the government's narrative. The government's job is to tell us what they're going to do and then to do it. And it's up to us to decide if we agree with that or not. It's not up to them to tell us what we're allowed to think and what we're allowed to do.
Yeah, they're basically controlling our thoughts. right? Like if we can't express that how we feel, then everything's suppressed. Like you can't disagree with us, or else prison or whatever.
Yeah, control of speech is pretty much the same thing as controlling your thoughts. There's not a big difference, I don't believe. Because as soon as your speech is controlled, then you also yeah, exactly. So there's really no difference. So I think our society, our free society that we currently enjoy, is really underpinned by those things.
It looks like we have the police here present, just in case a peace fighter, not fighting, but peacefully, Rebecca.
Don't give up hope. Keep fighting, no matter what they fucking throw at you, no matter how they try to scare you, no matter how they try to intimidate you, fight. Keep fighting. When I said that in the speech, I said we have two options. We fight or we lose. And I fought, and I won, and so can everyone here. Thank you guys so much for coming.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Let's also thank that judge.
Thank that judge.
Yes.
Wow. Yep.
We
We did it. We did it.
God bless you, brother.
Thanks to this guy right here. I know he doesn't like his face, but you're on the camera now. Dave Freedom, guys. None of this would have been possible without his help, without his guidance, without his support. Rebecca and everyone else, guys. It takes a village, and we all helped. We all came together, and we won. This is our win. This was our versus freedom, and we won. All right.
What's at stake today?
What's at stake? I mean, I feel confident. I feel confident that we're gonna, get a win here. What the Crown is attempting to set, the precedent the Crown is attempting to set, is, in my opinion, malicious. Escalating an alleged bylaw infraction that has to do with public safety to a criminal charge, a warrantless arrest, and a criminal charge. The Crown seeking 6 to 12 months in jail for peacefully protesting and speaking. I mean, that says it all, right? You can't understate how serious that is. It's just, it's wild.
So could this be considered, according to what they found you guilty of, could we be all guilty of a crime here because we're assembling and we're choosing to oppose the government narrative?
Right.
Could we be now guilty at the same time you
All-
were convicted of?
All the police and the Crown would have to do is make an alleged possibility of risk to the public. In my case, wherever there's a possibility of risk, then yes.
What was the risk?
The pandemic, the alleged pandemic, and crazy. Anyway, we're not getting into that. We're gonna get a win today, and things are gonna go our way. Yeah.
We have to have a win today
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it will set precedent here.
Yeah.
And we may lose everything.
Yeah, I don't think so, man. I'm like I said, I feel confident. A lot's on the line, but it will be a big step for them to find me guilty and to do what the Crown wants.
Although Stefanos did sleep in it last night, so it may need some cleaning first.
Did I hear you say that they start out with a provincial offense and then go to criminal?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Who agreed to it to shift jurisdiction?
The Crown.
So they just went ahead and done that, right? So
Yeah.
there's constitutional case law on that. They can't do that. This court doesn't have jurisdiction on that.
Yep, 100%.
As a matter of fact, I used that one of the cases in Alberta. Remember the mother and the daughter who were forced in that COVID hotel off the plane?
Okay.
I used that there. The courts threw it out. They can't do it. So there's plenty of case law. on that, too.
Jurisdiction?
Yeah, jurisdiction.
At provincial level?
Yeah, they can't you can't be charged in provincial offenses and then get charged in criminal at the same time. It doesn't work like that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
No, that's, I mean, our main argument is case precedent of Roberts versus Sharma. It specifically states that you can't escalate provincial or municipal offenses into federal.
Yeah, that's right. And you didn't agree to it, so they violated your constitutional right on top of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And not only that, they had means within the EMCPA and the Reopening Ontario Act to escalate. If they wanted to arrest me, they could have done it. They could have done it within the legislation they had. They chose not to.
Right. It's because they got no leg to stand on provincial offense. So now they're going to try to bring it to something else.
And they could have done, they did it in Nova Scotia, they did it in New Brunswick, they did an injunction, you know, and with that injunction, then they were able to do the arrest, but they didn't do that here. Yeah. They didn't do that here.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's still a constitutional infringement, right? So that's where you got to stand there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a big day today. Sorry, that was the 11th, but today it was a first step for the Canadian Charter for our freedom, just to assemble against mandates, lockdowns, and all the things that we suffered through. But it is a first step, successful first step. That was a big victory for Canada, a first step in many steps, because we have Dr. Trazi, who's also um, fighting for Canadians. Yeah, I started last week, I believe. But let's have a listen to him.
Hi, friends. It's Dr. Mark Trozy here. I want to share
Choosy.
a short list of some of the main things I would choose to detoxify myself from and survive following the COVID-19 genetic vaccines. So, intermittent fasting on an everyday basis, eating one's food within a 6 to 8 hour window and not eating anything except water, black coffee, black teas, things like that in the other hours. Occasionally doing a 3-day water fast at least once a month. And the following supplements: nattokinase 100 milligrams twice daily, bromelain 500 milligrams once daily, curcumin 500 milligrams twice daily, or curcuminoids as similar supplements, N-acetylcysteine 600 to 1200 milligrams daily. And personally, I would also choose ivermectin 12 to 24 milligrams, which I would take every day for a few weeks and then consider tapering down to once or twice weekly, depending on my response. That's a very short advice for people in a hurry. I do recommend that you look at the detox series at my website, that you look at Dr. Peter McCullough's work, that you look at the FLCCC or the World Council for Health, all for more details. Have a great day.
Dr. Trazi is also fighting in court on behalf of us for the medical industry. He's on X here, as you can see. He is trying to save us from the medical industry, big pharma profit industry, that industrial complex that we're dealing with. But I will probably do a show covering Mark and everything, how his court's going and all that, and let everyone know how that's going. So first step was good for all of us, and we also have Sarah Shajunian, who's also probably November 28th. So watch us for that upcoming information on that situation. We're rooting for y'all, every step of the way, every little bit of freedom that we can get back, we'll gladly take it back. Until next time, thank you for joining me here at the Truth Table.